Okay, so next episode. Uh, they both log back in to get ready for, the adventure. Um, well, actually, there's a bit before that. Sugu's leaving school, and the guy in real life, can't remember his name. Um, the guy that is Recon in real life, he's like, hey, so we're going leveling. When do you want to meet up? And she's like, nah, I'm skipping that today. I promised I'd show this dude to the way to the world tree. And he's like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And so he goes back and he tells the person that you know they were going to party with, the Sigurd guy who's like the party leader. And so they get ready to confront him. But before that, like I said, they log in. Leafa walks into the tavern where she left him, and she's like, "Oh, I just got here. I was out buying stuff." And then Kirito like looks at his sword, which is like a one-handed level 1 sword, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to change up my equipment." Now he can't. His technique for dual wielding is not in the game, because there's one point in the first episode when he's looking at his skill tree and you can see all of them, but then there's one that's like X'd out with question marks. That was his dual wield ability, so there's no way for him to dual wield in this game. So he's like, how am I gonna compensate for that? So he buys a great sword, and unlike any other great sword user, he uses it one-handed for the most part. There's a couple of times he uses with 2 hands, but he likes it heavy. And so she's watching him equip it and get it strapped down on his back, and she just laughs at him. And so then they go to leave, and he's like, well, lead the way. And she said, well, we got to go to the tower first. And he's like, why? He's like, well, if you're going to fly long distances, you want to have a lot of altitude rather than having to waste time gaining altitude. And he's like, oh, it makes sense. So they go to the base of the tower and they go in, and the Sigurd guy stops them, and he tries to pick a fight. He's like, you can't leave the party, Leafa. And she's like, well, I am. And he said, so you're going to become a renegade? You're just going to leave? You realize that that's going to ruin your reputation and part of ours. I mean, you've become part of our reputation. And then Kirito says something that he quoted from the last season. She's not a piece of equipment that you can own. She's not a sword or a shield for you to covet and show off and keep to yourself. She's a player. She's her own person. You can't treat people like that. Which is something that Asuna taught him in the first series. Or was it? Was that the game? I don't know. It could be. I've been playing the phone game too, so there's another plot line. It could be from the game. Whatever. It could be from all 3. So anyways, he makes his little speech, and that really ticks the dude off. He's like, you know what? I can kill you right here and right now. You can't do anything. And then one of his guild mates is like, hey, you probably don't want to do that with all these people watching. You just cut down a dude that ain't done nothing in the middle of the town. And so he basically says, if you leave with him, you better run when we find you, because I'm coming for you. And so they set off. They're flying around fighting things. And she's like, well, let's get to this spot before we land, or try and get there. And then it cuts away. It cuts back to the cringe in the tower. Sugo is sitting there messing with Asuna again, touching her arm, acting like he's gonna touch her chest, and then he just gets frustrated and is like, why are you so cold? You realize that's not a real body. Why not just have some fun? And she's like, you wouldn't understand. It's like, oh, it's gonna hurt your mind? Whatever. And then he's like, you know what really hurts a mind? You know, that hero that you were in love with, Kirito? Kazuto? Yeah, I met him yesterday. I met him. You know where I met him? Your hospital room. Where I told him about our marriage. Oh, you should have seen the look on his face. He's so weak. I can't believe that was the hero of SAO. His face just crumpled. You should have seen it. It was so exquisite. I wish I could have saved it. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I'll have to extend to him some invitations. It would only be proper. And so she turns around. She's like sitting on a bed that's got a vanity mirror on the side of it, not at the headboard. Details. So she goes and she looks in the mirror and she puts on a sad expression, but in her inner dialogue, she's like, he's alive. He's alive. And so she's convinced herself, yes, he's gonna come and get me. And then he continues on. It's like, he's too much of a bitch to ever put on another nerve gear or Amisphere or any kind of VR thing. So you'll never see him. As he's walking out, she's looking at him in the mirror, and he glances at her to make sure she's not looking, and then he punches in the code. Well, in the mirror, she sees the code, and she memorizes it. So she's like, yeah, okay. So then we cut back to Kirito and Lifa. They land. She explains that it's good that they ran out of flying time right there because they have to go on foot because there's a mountain that's too high to fly over. So they have to go through it. And she's actually never been beyond there, so it'll be new for her too. But they should probably take a rest break, seeing as how they've been at it for 4 or 5 hours. And so she explains that in a neutral territory, she can log out and leave her avatar there, and he guards it while she does whatever in real life and then comes back. Because you can't just straight out log out. If you log out in the field, your body stays there because it's not a safe area. So she logs out, he stays there, he guards her, and she goes, she knocks on his door. He's like, are you there? You want anything to eat? What do you want to eat? Or what are you doing for dinner? And then whenever she doesn't get an answer, she goes to open the door, but then she remembers the last time she went in there, he was breaking down, and she's like, maybe I'll give him some space. So she makes him a sandwich, she takes a bath, she goes, logs back in. She's like, all right, your turn. And she like kind of starts to snuggle up against him and lay her back to him while he's gone. And then Yui comes out of nowhere, out of his pocket. And she's like, you're kind of weird, aren't you? How can you move while he's not here? And she's like, I'm my own person. And then she asks, like, why do you call him daddy? Like, because he calls me his daughter. I don't know. And she's like, well, do you like him? And she said, explain to you what you mean by like. It's like, it's somebody that makes you happy to be around them. Somebody that makes you excited. And before she can answer that, Kirito's back. He's like, what are y'all talking about? And she's like, nothing, nothing. And Yui almost says that they were talking about the meaning of liking people. And she's like, no, 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 nothing, nothing. And then Kirito's like, well, let's go then. She said, what, you ate already? And she said, and he was like, yeah, my family made me something. And he's like, I just got this weird feeling that we're being watched right now. And then Yui's like, I don't sense any people by. And he's like, Leafa, is there something that could be going on? She said, yeah, there's a spell called a tracer spell. But, I mean, it could be a ladybug. It could be an animal. And depending on the person's skill level, it could be far away from us and still be keeping track of us. So if that is what it is, we just need to be cautious. And so they set off towards the caves, and there's a group of salamander people just tracking them with a bat. So there's some shenanigans going on. And I think it's the next episode. We get some good combat in the next episode. So until then.